She gave free soup to the lonely old woman every night at the diner. Just kindness, nothing more. Then a mafia boss walked in with 4 men in suits and dropped a photo on the counter. It was the old woman, decades younger. "That's my mother," he said coldly. "She's supposed to be dead." The waitress had no idea the stranger she'd been protecting held secrets dangerous enough to destroy an empire, or that her kindness would pull her into a world she could never escape. The neon sign outside Maggie's diner flickered 3 times before dying completely. Mira didn't bother calling the landlord anymore. In this part of Brooklyn, things stayed broken. She wiped down the last booth, her shoulders aching from a double shift. The rain hammered against the windows, turning the street outside into a blur of headlights and shadows. It was nearly midnight, and she should have locked up an hour ago, but Rose hadn't finished her soup yet. "You're going to catch hell from your boss, staying open this late," Rose said from her usual spot by the window. Her weather hands cupped the ceramic bowl like it was precious. "I am the boss between 10 p.m. and closing," Mira replied, managing a tired smile. Perks of being the senior waitress at a place where nobody wants the late shift. Rose chuckled, but it turned into a cough. She was thin, too thin, and her clothes hung loose on her frame. Mira had been sneaking her free meals for 3 months now, ever since she'd found the old woman sitting on the diner steps in the rain, staring at nothing. "That's the last of the vegetable soup," Mira said, bringing over a coffee refill. "But I can make you a grilled cheese if you're still hungry." "You're too kind to an old fool like me." Rose's eyes were distant, focused somewhere beyond the rain-streaked glass. "My grandmother used to make soup like this. Back in the old country before." She stopped herself, fingers tightening around the bowl. Mira had learned not to push. Rose's past was a locked door, and every time Mira tried to open it, the old woman would change the subject or start humming. Always the same tune, something Italian and sad that made Mira's chest tight. "Before what?" Mira asked gently, sitting across from her. "Before the roses burned," Rose whispered. "We had a garden.
Hundreds of them.
Red, white, pink. My son used to pick them for me every Sunday." Her voice cracked. "That was before he learned to pick locks instead." Mira reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Rose's fingers were ice cold.
The doorbell chimed.
Mira looked up, ready to tell whoever it was that they were closed. The words died in her throat. 5 men stood in the doorway, rain dripping from their expensive suits. They didn't look like the usual late-night crowd. No construction workers, no cab drivers grabbing coffee. These men wore tailored wool and Italian leather. Their faces were hard, carved from the same cold stone as the city itself. The one in front was different from the others. Older, maybe 50, with silver threading through his dark hair. He had the kind of face that belonged on old Roman coins, proud, cruel, and completely still. When he looked at Mira, she felt like a bug under glass. "We're closed," Mira said, but her voice came out smaller than she intended. The man ignored her. His eyes swept the diner, over the cracked vinyl booths, the chipped Formica counter, the ancient jukebox in the corner. Then his gaze landed on Rose. The old woman had gone rigid, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips. "Gentlemen, please." Mira stood up, trying to put herself between them and Rose. "I said we're closed. You'll have to come back tomorrow." "Sit down." The silver-haired man's voice was quiet, but it cut through the diner like a blade. He wasn't making a suggestion. Mira didn't sit. 2 of the men moved past her, heading straight for Rose. The old woman tried to stand, but one of them, a thick-necked man with a scar splitting his eyebrow, put a hand on her shoulder and pushed her back down. "Don't touch her." Mira grabbed a coffee pot from the warmer, holding it like a weapon. Hot coffee sloshed over her hand, but she didn't let go. The silver-haired man finally looked at her, really looked at her. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "You're brave," he said. "Stupid, but brave." He reached into his jacket. Mira's heart stopped. But he didn't pull out a gun. Instead, he produced a photograph, old and faded, and dropped it on the counter between them. Have you seen this woman? Mira stared at the photo. It showed a young woman, maybe 30, standing in front of a mansion. She wore an elegant dress and diamond earrings, her dark hair swept up in a classic style. She was beautiful, and she was smiling, but it was the same sad smile Rose wore when she thought no one was watching. I don't, Mira started. Look closer.
She did.
And her stomach dropped. It was Rose. Decades younger, a different life, but unmistakably her. I don't know her, Mira lied, the words tumbling out too fast. The man's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flashed in his eyes. He gestured with 2 fingers, and his men began tearing through the diner. They overturned chairs, yanked open cabinet doors, scattered napkins and silverware across the floor. Hey, stop it. Mira moved toward them, but the silver-haired man blocked her path. Where's she staying? He asked softly. I don't know what you're talking about. Behind him, Mira saw Rose slip out of her booth. The old woman moved with surprising speed for someone so frail, heading toward the back exit. The men were too busy searching to notice. My name is Dante Moretti, the man said, and something about the way he said it made Myra's blood run cold. She'd heard that name before, whispered by the regulars, mentioned in news reports about organized crime. And the woman in that photo is my mother. Myra's world tilted. She's been dead for 15 years, Dante continued, his voice carrying the weight of old grief. But someone saw her. Here. At this diner, his eyes bored into hers. So I'll ask you one more time.
Where is she?
The back door clicked shut. One of Dante's men noticed. Boss. Dante spun around, faster than Mira expected. He took 3 long strides toward the kitchen, his men following. Mira heard them throw open the back door, heard their footsteps echoing in the alley. They came back empty-handed. Dante turned to Mira, and for the first time, she saw real emotion on his face. It was rage, cold and bottomless. If you see her again, he said, each word precise and terrible, you tell her that her son wants her home. You tell her that family doesn't run. And you tell her, his voice caught, just for a second, tell her the roses grew back. He dropped a business card on the counter, then walked out into the rain. His men followed, leaving the diner in shambles. Mira stood there, shaking, until their car disappeared down the street. Then she locked the door, grabbed her coat, and ran into the alley. She found Rose huddled behind the dumpster, soaked through and trembling. Rose. Don't call me that. The old woman looked up, and in the dim light from the street, Mira saw tears mixing with rain on her weathered face. My name is Rosa Moretti, and that man, the one who just destroyed your diner, he's my son. Thunder rumbled overhead. And God help me, Rosa whispered, he's right. I should be dead. Mira brought Rosa back inside through the back door, locking it behind them. The old woman was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Mira wrapped her in a tablecloth, the closest thing to a blanket she could find, and sat her down in the kitchen, away from the windows. Stay here, Mira whispered. Don't move. She crept back into the dining area, half expecting to see Dante's men still lurking outside. The street was empty except for the rain. She grabbed the photograph from the counter where Dante had left it, along with his business card. The card was simple. Expensive black stock with embossed silver lettering, Dante Moretti, and a phone number. Nothing else. No company name, no address. Men like him didn't need to advertise. Mira looked at the photograph again. Young Rosa stood in front of what had to be a mansion, 3 stories of white stone with manicured gardens stretching behind her. She wore pearls. Real ones, Mira guessed. The kind that cost more than Mira made in a year. That was taken on my 40th birthday, Rosa's voice came from the kitchen doorway. She'd stopped shaking, but her face was pale. Dante was 15. He took the picture. He'd just gotten a new camera, one of those expensive ones he'd begged his father for. Mira guided her back to the kitchen table. Rosa, what's going on? Why does your son think you're dead? Because I needed him to. Rosa's fingers traced the edge of a tablecloth. Because if he knew I was alive, he'd never let me go. And I couldn't watch what he was becoming. What do you mean? Rosa closed her eyes. After his father died, Dante changed.
He was such a sweet boy before.
He played piano. Can you imagine? My son, who just threatened you, used to play Chopin. A bitter laugh escaped her. But when Antonio died, something in Dante died too. He became hard.
Cold.
He took over his father's business and turned it into something worse. Something I didn't recognize. His father's business, Mira repeated slowly. You mean the Moretti family? Yes, Rosa opened her eyes. Antonio ran one of the largest crime syndicates in New York. And when he was murdered, Dante inherited all of it. The money, the violence, the blood. Mira felt the room spinning. She'd been serving soup to a mafia widow. She'd lied to a mafia boss. She'd just made herself an enemy of one of the most dangerous men in the city. Why did you come back? Mira asked. If you've been hiding for 15 years, why come back to Brooklyn? Why risk being near him? Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Because I'm dying. The words hung in the air between them. I have maybe 6 months, Rosa continued, her voice steady now. And I thought, foolishly, that I could see him one last time. From a distance. Just to know he was alive. I never meant to let him find me. Someone must have recognized you. Mrs. Chun from the grocery store on 5th, Rosa said. I saw her looking at me last week.
I should have known.
She used to work in our house back when Dante was a boy. I thought maybe she wouldn't remember, or wouldn't care. But everyone has a price, and Dante pays well for information. Mira thought about the men who'd just torn through her diner. About Dante's cold eyes and colder voice. About the way he'd said family doesn't run. He wants you back, Mira said. He wants to lock me away. Rosa's hands clenched into fists. In that big house, behind those gates, where he can control everything. Where I can watch him destroy himself and everyone around him, just like his father did. I won't do it. I'd rather die alone than live in that cage again. Mira looked around at the destroyed diner. Chairs on their sides, napkins scattered like snow, the cabinet doors hanging open. Tomorrow, her boss would demand answers. He'd probably fire her. She couldn't afford to lose this job. But when she looked at Rosa, small and frail and terrified, she couldn't turn her away. You can't go back to wherever you've been staying, Mira said. Dante will find you. I know. And you can't stay here. He'll come back. I know. Mira made a decision that would change everything. My apartment. It's small, and it's above a laundromat, and it smells like detergent, but it's mine. He won't think to look there. Not yet. Rosa stared at her. Why would you help me?
You don't know me.
You don't owe me anything. You're right, Mira said. But for 3 months, you've sat in that booth and kept me company on the worst shifts. You've hummed those songs when the diner was too quiet and I was too lonely. You made this place feel less empty. She picked up the photograph. And I don't care who your son is. Nobody should have to die alone. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. You have no idea what you're risking. Then tell me. Dante doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. And he always gets what he wants. Outside, a car drove slowly past the diner. Mira watched its taillights disappear into the rain. Let him try, she said. They waited until 2 in the morning before leaving. Mira made Rosa wear her spare coat and a knit cap pulled low over her face. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the streets were still slick and empty. Stay close to me, Mira whispered, locking the diner door behind them. And if you see any black cars, any men in suits, you tell me immediately. They moved quickly down the sidewalk, their footsteps echoing off the brick buildings. Myra's apartment was only 4 blocks away, but every shadow made her jump. Every car that passed felt like a threat. They were halfway there when Rosa suddenly grabbed Myra's arm. Wait, what? Someone's following us. Mira turned, her heart hammering. The street behind them was empty. No cars. No people. Just the glow of streetlights reflecting off wet pavement.
I don't see anyone, Mira said.
I can feel it. Rosa's grip tightened. When you live in fear long enough, you develop instincts. Someone's watching. Mira pulled her into the narrow gap between two buildings, barely an alley, more like a crack in the city. They pressed against the cold brick, hidden in shadow. 30 seconds later, a man walked past. He wore a dark jacket and moved slowly, his head turning as if searching for something. Or someone. Mira held her breath until he disappeared around the corner. One of Dante's? She whispered. Probably. He'll have people looking all night. Rosa's voice was steady despite her shaking hands. We should go.
Now.
Before he circles back. They emerged from the alley and walked faster, nearly running. Myra's building appeared ahead, a tired brick structure with a flickering sign that read Suds and Spin Laundromat. Her apartment was on the second floor, accessed by a rusty fire escape around back. Not exactly luxury, Mira said as they climbed the metal stairs. Luxury is a prison with silk curtains, Rosa replied. Inside, Myra's studio apartment was exactly what she'd warned. Small and filled with the smell of industrial detergent rising from the laundromat below. A futon against one wall, a kitchenette that was barely more than a hot plate and mini-fridge, a bathroom the size of a closet. Her entire life fit in 300 square feet. Rosa looked around, and to Myra's surprise, she smiled. It's perfect. It's a shoebox. It's free. Rosa sat heavily on the futon. Now that they'd stopped moving, exhaustion seemed to crash over her like a wave. I haven't felt free in decades. Mira put water on for tea, the cheap kind from the bodega downstairs, but it was hot, and it was something. She sat beside Rosa, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Tell me the truth, Mira finally said. Why did Dante become what he is? People don't just wake up one day and decide to be criminals. Rosa stared at her tea, watching the steam rise. His father was murdered when Dante was 17. Gunned down in front of her house, coming home from a restaurant. Dante was the one who found him.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry for Antonio. He was a terrible man who built his empire on other people's suffering. Rosa's voice was flat. But Dante worshipped him. He couldn't see the monster, only the father who taught him to fish and took him to baseball games. When Antonio died, Dante convinced himself that if he'd been stronger, tougher, more ruthless, he could have prevented it. So, he became ruthless. He became his father. Only worse. Rosa set down her tea with shaking hands. Within 2 years, Dante had consolidated power, eliminated his father's rivals, and doubled the family's territory. People who crossed him disappeared. People who betrayed him. She stopped, unable to finish. And you couldn't stop him. I tried. God, how I tried. I begged him to leave that life. To use Antonio's money to go legitimate, to build something clean. But by then, the violence was all he understood. It was his language, his tool, his comfort. Rosa's eyes were distant. The final straw came when he ordered a hit on a man who'd stolen from the family. But the man had a wife.
And a daughter.
10 years old. Myra's stomach clenched. Dante said it was necessary. That everyone connected to the theft had to pay. I looked at my son, my beautiful boy, and saw only ice where his heart used to be. Tears streamed down Rosa's face now. So I ran. I staged my death. Made it look like I drowned off the coast during a vacation. Left everything behind except some old photographs and the clothes on my back. And the documents you mentioned in the alley, Mira said quietly. You said you had papers. Evidence. Rosa went very still. How did you? You were mumbling when I found you behind the dumpster. Something about papers that could destroy the family. For a long moment, Rosa didn't answer. Then she reached into her coat, the one Mira had given her, and pulled out a small, waterproof envelope taped to the lining. Bank accounts. Shell companies. Names of politicians on the payroll. Judges. Police captains. Everything Antonio built his empire on, and everything Dante expanded. Rosa's hands trembled as she held it. If this gets out, the Moretti family ends.
Not just Dante.
All of them. Then why haven't you? Because he's still my son. Rosa's voice broke. And I'm still his mother, no matter what he's become. Morning came too quickly. Mira woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and the rhythmic thump of washing machines below. Rosa was already awake, sitting at the small table by the window, staring out at the street. Did you sleep at all? Mira asked, rubbing her eyes. Old women don't need much sleep. We're too close to the final rest to practice for it. Rosa attempted a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Besides, I've spent 15 years sleeping with one eye open. Old habits. Mira made coffee, the real kind, not the instant stuff she usually settled for. If Rosa was dying, if these were her last months, then Mira would at least give her decent coffee. You should change, Rosa said suddenly. Put on something different from last night. If anyone saw us, they'll be looking for that blue jacket you were wearing. Mira hadn't even thought of that. Rosa had been running for 15 years. She'd learned to think 3 steps ahead. Mira pulled on jeans and a gray sweater, then tied her hair back. She looked different enough, she hoped. I need to make a phone call, Mira said. My boss is going to want to know why the diner looks like a tornado hit it. Don't tell him. I won't. I'll say it was a robbery. Random. Junkies looking for the register. Mira picked up her phone, then paused. Rosa, if Dante is as powerful as you say, won't he be able to track my phone? Find this address.
Rosa nodded slowly.
Eventually. He has people who can do that. But it takes time. We have maybe a day, maybe 2 before he thinks to look into your life that deeply. Right now, he probably assumes you were just a bystander. Someone who happened to be there. Until he decides I wasn't. Until then, Mira made the call. Her boss, Frank, was furious about the mess, but believed her story about a robbery. He told her to take the day off while he dealt with the police report and insurance. She hung up, feeling guilty for lying, but knowing the truth would only put Frank in danger too. When she turned back, Rosa was pulling off her coat. As the fabric slipped from her shoulder, Mira saw it, a puckered scar, old and silver, about the size of a quarter. What happened? The words came out before Mira could stop them. Rosa looked down at the scar, as if she'd forgotten it was there. A bullet. 23 years ago.
Who shot you?
Antonio. My husband. Rosa said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. It was an accident. Or maybe it wasn't. I've never been entirely sure. Mira sat down heavily. Your husband shot you. We were arguing. About the business. About Dante. About the kind of man Antonio was turning our son into. Rosa traced the scar with her fingers. Antonio kept a gun in his desk drawer. I grabbed it. I don't know why. I wasn't going to use it. I just wanted him to listen, to take me seriously for once. But he lunged for it, and it went off.
Jesus, Rosa.
The bullet went through my shoulder. Clean through. Antonio was horrified. I'd never seen him so scared. He got me to a doctor who owed him favors, someone who wouldn't report it. The doctor saved my life. Rosa pulled her coat back on, hiding the scar. But things were never the same after that. Antonio looked at me differently. Like I was dangerous. Like I was something to be controlled. Is that why you have the documents? Mira asked. As protection? Smart girl. Rosa's expression darkened. After I was shot, I realized I needed insurance. So I started copying things. Taking photographs of Antonio's ledgers. Recording conversations. It took me 5 years to compile everything, and he never knew. When he was murdered, I kept the documents hidden. I thought maybe I'd use them someday to bargain for Dante's soul. To force him out of the life. But you didn't. By the time I was ready, Dante was already too far gone. And I knew if I showed him those papers, if I threatened to expose everything his father built, Rosa's voice faltered. He'd see it as the ultimate betrayal. He might even kill you, Mira finished quietly.
Rosa nodded.
So, I ran instead. Took the documents with me as insurance, in case I was ever found. If anyone in the family tries to hurt me, if anything happens to me, those papers go to the FBI. I set up a dead man's switch with a lawyer years ago. Mira thought about Dante's face last night. The rage in his eyes when he realized his mother had slipped away. Does he know about the documents? I don't think so. Antonio kept me separate from the business. Dante probably assumes I knew nothing, that I was just the wife who looked pretty at parties and kept her mouth shut. Rosa laughed bitterly. Men like them always underestimate women. It's their greatest weakness. A sound from outside made them both freeze. Footsteps on the fire escape. Mira moved to the window, careful to stay hidden behind the curtain. A man stood on the landing below, looking up at her apartment. He wore a suit. Even from here, she could see the bulge of a gun beneath his jacket. They found us, she whispered. Rosa stood, already reaching for her coat. The envelope. Where did I put? Here, Mira grabbed it from the table. But where do we go? Anywhere but here. The footsteps started climbing. Mira grabbed Rosa's arm and pulled her toward the apartment door. They slipped out into the hallway just as heavy footsteps reached the fire escape landing outside. The building's interior stairs were at the far end, old wooden steps that creaked with every movement. Quietly, Mira breathed. They descended as fast as they dared. Rosa's breathing labored. At the bottom, Mira pushed through the door that led into the laundromat. Mrs. Kim, the owner, looked up from folding towels. Mira, you okay? You look.
Fine.
Everything's fine, Mira called out, not stopping. They rushed through the front door and onto the street. Behind them, Mira heard a shout. The man had reached her apartment. Walk normally, Rosa instructed, her voice tight. Running attracts attention. They turned the corner, then another, zigzagging through the neighborhood. Myra's mind raced. They couldn't go to the diner. They couldn't stay at her apartment. Where else was there? I have a friend, Mira said suddenly.
Ellie.
He owns a garage outside the city, near Yonkers. He's good people. We could. Are you sure you want to involve someone else in this? Mira thought about it for exactly 2 seconds.
No.
But I don't see another option. They caught a bus heading north, sitting in the back where they could watch everyone who got on. Rosa kept the envelope pressed against her chest, hidden beneath her coat. Every time someone in a suit entered, Myra's heart stopped, but they were all just commuters, oblivious to the danger. Mira pulled out her phone to call Eli, then hesitated. Can they track this? If I make a call? Not instantly, but the call will leave a record. If Dante's people pull your phone logs later, they'll see it. Then they'll see it, Mira dialed. Eli picked up on the third ring. Mira? What's wrong? You never call this early. I need help. Big help. Can't explain over the phone, but can I come to the farmhouse?
A pause.
Eli had inherited a small property from his grandmother, an old farmhouse with a garage where he fixed cars on weekends. He'd offered to let Mira stay there once when her apartment had a bedbug scare. Yeah, of course. You okay? Not really. I'll explain when I get there. An hour, maybe less. I'll be waiting. She hung up and immediately turned off her phone, removing the battery like she'd seen in movies. Rosa watched with approval. Your friend. Can you trust him completely? Eli's the most honest person I know. He once drove 30 miles to return a wallet he found with $12 in it. Mira looked out the window as Brooklyn gave way to the Bronx. If I can't trust him, I can't trust anyone. They got off the bus in Yonkers and walked the last 2 miles to the farmhouse. It sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by overgrown fields. The garage was a separate building, its bay doors open, revealing the skeleton of a vintage Mustang on jack stands. Eli emerged, wiping grease from his hands. He was tall and lean, with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who spent his life solving mechanical puzzles. When he saw Myra's face, his expression shifted to concern. What happened? This is Rosa, Mira said. And we're in trouble. Inside the farmhouse, over coffee Eli insisted on making, Mira told him everything. She watched his face carefully. The shock when she mentioned Dante Moretti, the disbelief when she explained about Rosa's past, the growing worry as she described the men searching for them. So let me get this straight, Eli said slowly. You're hiding a mafia boss's mother. A mafia boss who thinks she's dead. And she has documents that could destroy his entire organization. That's about it, Mira confirmed. And you came here, to my grandmother's farmhouse, because you thought this was a good hiding place. I came here because you're the only person I know who won't call the cops or freak out or... I'm freaking out, Eli interrupted. I'm actively freaking out right now. I'm just doing it internally. Rosa spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. You should tell us to leave. This young woman made a foolish choice involving you. You have every right to protect yourself. Eli looked at Rosa, really looked at her. Saw the exhaustion in her face, the fear she was trying to hide, the resignation of someone who'd been running for too long.
He sighed.
My grandmother used to say that everyone deserves a place to rest their head, no questions asked. She took in foster kids, stray dogs, once even a raccoon that bit her. He stood up. You can stay in the upstairs bedroom. It's small, but the door locks from the inside. And there's a window that opens onto the garage roof if you need to leave quickly. Thank you, Rosa whispered. Don't thank me yet. If guys with guns show up, I'm terrible in a fight. I once got beat up by a vending machine. Despite everything, Mira almost smiled. That night, Myra's phone, now reassembled and turned on, rang from the kitchen counter. Unknown number. She stared at it, her stomach dropping. Answer it, Rosa said from the doorway. If you don't, they'll know you're hiding something. Mira picked up. Hello. A man's voice, smooth and cold. You shouldn't hide her. You don't know what you're protecting. The line went dead. Mira stared at the phone in her hand, her blood turning to ice. What did they say? Eli asked. They know. Myra's voice came out hollow. They know I have her. Rosa closed her eyes. Then we need to leave.
Now.
Wait, Eli held up a hand. If they knew exactly where you were, they'd already be here. That call was a fishing expedition. They're trying to scare you into moving, into making a mistake they can follow. He's right, Rosa said slowly. Dante's people are good, but they're not omniscient. Not yet. So what do we do? Mira asked. We stay put tonight, Eli decided. Tomorrow morning, we figure out next steps. But right now, everyone's exhausted, and exhausted people make bad decisions. He looked at Rosa. You should rest. You look like you're about to collapse. Rosa didn't argue. Mira helped her upstairs to the small bedroom. As Rosa settled onto the bed, Mira noticed her hands were trembling worse than before. Are you okay? Should I find you a doctor? No doctors. They ask questions. Rosa pulled a bottle of pills from her coat pocket. For the pain. The cancer's in my bones now. Some days are better than others. Mira felt a surge of anger, not at Rosa, but at the world. At Dante, for making his mother spend her final months running and hiding. At Antonio, for building an empire that destroyed his family. At the senseless cruelty of it all. Get some sleep, Mira said softly. I'll wake you if anything happens. Downstairs, Eli had locked all the doors and was checking the windows. I feel like I'm in a movie, he muttered. Except in movies, the mechanic doesn't die in the first act. You're not going to die. You don't know that. You don't know what these people are capable of. Actually, I do. Mira sank onto the couch. Rosa told me stories. About people who cross the Moretus. About what Dante does to anyone he considers a traitor. She looked up at Eli. I should have told you everything before dragging you into this. I'm sorry. Eli sat beside her. I'm a grown man who said yes. That's on me. He was quiet for a moment. Is she really worth all this? You barely know her. She's a dying woman who deserves peace. That has to be worth something. Even if it costs you everything? Mira didn't have an answer for that. They took turns keeping watch. Mira had the first shift, sitting by the window with a view of the driveway. The night was clear and cold, the stars bright above the fields. Every sound made her jump, an owl hooting, branches scraping the roof, the old house settling. Around 2 a.m, she saw them. Headlights, moving slowly up the long driveway. One car, then another behind it. They stopped before reaching the house, parking far enough away that their engines wouldn't be heard.
Ugh.
Mira hissed. They're here. Eli was up instantly, moving to the window. 4 men climbed out of the cars, no, 5. The 5th was unmistakable even in silhouette. Dante Moretti. Get Rosa, Eli said. Take her to the barn. There's a crawl space beneath the back wall. We used to hide there as kids. She can fit. What about you? I'm going to stall them. Act confused. Just a guy who fixes cars and minds his business. He pushed Mira toward the stairs.
Go. Now.
Mira ran upstairs and shook Rosa awake. They found us. We have to move. Rosa was alert immediately, years of survival instinct kicking in. They climbed out the bedroom window onto the garage roof, then slid down a drain pipe into the shadows behind the building. The barn was 50 feet away, across open ground. They ran, bent low, Rosa moving faster than Mira would have thought possible. Inside the barn, Mira found the crawl space exactly where Eli said, a gap between the foundation and the dirt floor, hidden behind old hay bales. Get in. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear. Rosa grabbed Myra's hand. If they hurt that boy because of me. They won't. Eli can handle himself. Mira hoped that was true. Now hide. Rosa squeezed into the space. Mira piled hay bales in front of her, making it look undisturbed. Then she heard it, the front door of the farmhouse splintering open. Mira pressed herself against the barn wall, hidden in shadow, and watched through a gap in the boards. Inside the house, lights blazed on. She could see figures moving past the windows, tearing through rooms. Then Dante appeared in the doorway, with Eli in front of him. One of Dante's men had a gun pressed to Eli's back. They brought him to the porch. Dante said something Mira couldn't hear. Eli shook his head, his face defiant. One of Dante's men hit him. Eli dropped to his knees. Myra's hand covered her mouth, stifling a gasp. Dante crouched down, speaking directly to Eli. His voice carried across the night air. I don't want to hurt you. I just want my mother back. Tell me where she is, and this ends peacefully. Eli looked up, blood running from his split lip. I don't know what you're talking about. Dante stood. He pulled something from his pocket, a piece of paper, and held it up. Even from a distance, Mira could see what it was. A drawing. Childish, faded with age. A boy holding flowers, giving them to a woman. Dante's voice cracked, just slightly. I drew this for her when I was 8. Found it in the diner, hidden under the register. He looked at Eli with something that might have been grief. She kept it all these years. Even when she ran from me, Dante's hands clenched into fists. So don't tell me you don't know where she is. Someone's protecting her. And that someone will tell me the truth. Mira watched through the barn slats, her heart hammering against her ribs. Eli was still on his knees, defiant despite the blood on his face. Dante circled him like a predator, the childhood drawing still clutched in his hand. Last chance, Dante said quietly. Where is she? I told you. I don't know. Dante nodded to one of his men, the thick-necked one with the scar. He grabbed Eli's arm, twisting it behind his back. Eli grunted in pain, but didn't cry out. Myra's body moved before her mind could stop it. She stepped out from the barn, her hands raised.
Wait.
Stop. I'll tell you. Every gun turned toward her. Dante's eyes narrowed.
Mira? No. Elisoter.
2 of Dante's men rushed forward, grabbing her arms. They dragged her to the porch and forced her to her knees beside Eli. Dante stood over them both, his face unreadable. The waitress. I wondered if you were brave or stupid. Now I have my answer. He looked toward the barn. She's here, isn't she? My mother. She's gone. Mira lied desperately. She left hours ago. Caught a bus heading west. I don't know where. Don't. Dante's voice cut like a blade. Don't insult my intelligence. If she were gone, you wouldn't have given yourself up to protect your friend. He gestured to his men. Search everything. The barn, the garage, the fields. Find her. The men fanned out. Myra's stomach dropped. They'd find Rosa in minutes. Why do you even want her back? Mira asked, trying to buy time. She's been dead to you for 15 years. Why not let her stay that way? Dante's jaw tightened. Because she's my mother. She's a stranger who ran away from you. Watch your mouth, the scarred man growled, raising his hand. No, Dante stopped him. His eyes were on Mira, and for the first time, she saw real emotion there, not rage, but something deeper.
Pain.
You want to know why? Because she's the only family I have left. Because every decision I've made, everything I've built, was to make her proud. To create something worthy of the Moretti name. And then she left. Disappeared like I meant nothing. Maybe you didn't, Mira said quietly. Maybe she left because of what you became, not despite it. Dante's hand shot out, grabbing Myra's throat. Not squeezing, just holding her there, his fingers ice cold. You know nothing about me, about my family, about what we've survived. Then tell me. Mira gasped. Tell me why a mother would fake her death to escape her own son. From the barn came a shout. Boss, we found something. Dante released Mira and walked toward the barn. Mira struggled against the men holding her, but they were too strong. She watched helplessly as Dante disappeared inside. 30 seconds later, he emerged. Rosa walked beside him, her head high despite her trembling hands. She looked like a queen being led to execution. Dante, she said.
Just his name.
Nothing else. He stared at her. In the porch light, Mira could see his face clearly. The shock, the anger, and underneath it all, the face of a boy who'd lost his mother. 15 years, Dante whispered. 15 years I thought you were dead. I mourned you. His voice broke. How could you do that to me? Because I couldn't watch you anymore, Rosa said, her voice steady. Couldn't watch you become him. Him. Your father. The words hung in the night air like a curse. Dante's expression hardened. My father was a great man. He built an empire. He provided for us, protected us. He was a monster, Rosa interrupted. And you know it. Deep down, you've always known it. But you worshipped him anyway, and when he died, you decided to become him. To honor his memory by becoming something even worse. I avenged him. Dante's voice rose. The people who killed him, they paid. Everyone who betrayed him paid. I made the Moretti name feared and respected again.
Feared, yes.
Respected? Rosa shook her head. People don't respect monsters, Dante. They just pretend to, because they're terrified. Then why did you come back? If I'm such a monster, why risk everything to be near me? Rosa's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down her weathered face. Because I'm dying, and you're still my son. And I needed to see you one last time, even from a distance. Even knowing what you'd become. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Rosa spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. And because I need to tell you the truth. About your father's death. About what really happened that night. Dante went very still. What are you talking about? A rival gang killed him. Shot him in front of our house. No, Rosa closed her eyes. That's the story we told you. The story I let you believe because I thought, foolishly, it would spare you more pain. Mother, what are you saying? Rosa opened her eyes, and in them was a grief so deep it seemed bottomless. Your father wasn't murdered by enemies, Dante. He was killed by me. I pulled the trigger. I'm the one who shot Antonio Moretti. The night exploded into chaos. Dante lunged forward, his hands reaching for Rosa's throat. His men grabbed him, holding him back as he screamed, a sound of pure anguish that echoed across the fields. Mira watched in horror as everything shattered. It took 3 men to restrain Dante. He fought like a wild animal, his face twisted with rage and grief. Rosa stood perfectly still, accepting whatever violence might come, her confession hanging between them like a death sentence. Let me go, Dante roared. Let me. Boss, stop. The scarred man held him firmly. Not like this. Not here. Think. Slowly, Dante stopped struggling. His chest heaved, his eyes wild. When his men finally released him, he stood there shaking, staring at his mother like she was a ghost. "You're lying," he said finally. "This is some kind of trick. Some manipulation." "It was an accident," Rosa said quietly. "We were fighting. About you, actually. About the life your father was pulling you into. He kept a gun in his office and I grabbed it. Not to use it.
Just to make him listen.
But he tried to take it from me, and it went off." Dante shook his head violently.
No.
"No, I found him. Outside the house. There were tire tracks. Witnesses said they saw a black sedan." "Witnesses your father paid for," Rosa interrupted. "I shot him inside the house, in his office. But he was still alive. He staggered outside, trying to reach the car, trying to get help. That's where he collapsed. That's where you found him," her voice broke. "And with his dying breath, he made me promise to tell you it was the Giordano's. To give you a target for your grief. To point your rage at anyone but me." "That's impossible." "Why would he?" "Because he loved you more than he hated me. Because he knew if you learned the truth, it would destroy you." Rosa stepped closer, despite the danger. "And he was right. Look at you. Look at what knowing has done." Dante's hands were fists at his sides, trembling. "You let me hunt them. The Giordano's. I killed them all. Every single one. Men, Dante. People with families, with children. And they were innocent." "No one in that life is innocent," Rosa said. "But they didn't kill your father. That blood is on my hands alone." Mira watched Dante's face cycle through emotions too fast to name. Then something cold and terrible settled over his features, the mask of the mob boss returning. "Take her," he said to his men. "Lock her in the car." "Dante," Rosa began. "Don't," his voice was ice. "Don't say my name. Don't speak to me. You're not my mother. My mother died 15 years ago. You're just a liar who wears her face." Two men grabbed Rosa and dragged her toward the cars. She didn't fight, didn't scream, just kept her eyes on her son until they pushed her into the back seat. Dante turned to Mira and Eli. "You too. You helped her. Hid her from me. Do you understand what the penalty is for that?" Eli spoke up, his voice surprisingly steady. "We helped an old woman who needed protection. That's all." "She's a murderer. She's a survivor," Mira countered. "And you know what? After hearing all this, I'd help her again. Because whatever she did it trying to save you from becoming exactly what you are now." Dante's hand moved to his jacket, toward where Mira knew his gun must be. She braced herself. But he didn't draw it. Instead, he pulled out a phone and made a call. "It's done. I found her."
"No, she's alive."
"We're bringing her to the estate." "Yes, all of it." He hung up and looked at Mira. "You want to help her? Then you're coming with us. You can watch what happens when someone betrays the Moretti family." "No." Eli started to stand, but one of the men slammed him back down. "Not him," Dante said. "He's nobody. Just a grease monkey who made a bad choice." He looked at Eli with something like contempt. "Go back to your engines and your simple life. Forget you saw anything tonight. Because if you talk, if you breathe a word of this to anyone, I'll burn this whole property to the ground with you inside it. Understand?" Eli's jaw clenched, but he nodded. They pulled Mira to her feet and dragged her toward the cars. She looked back at Eli, trying to memorize his face, wondering if she'd ever see him again. The drive to the Moretti estate was silent. Rosa sat in one car, surrounded by guards. Mira rode in the other with Dante. He stared out the window, his profile carved from stone. "She was protecting you," Mira said finally. "Everything she did, running, hiding, lying, it was all to protect you. I don't need protection. I need loyalty. She gave you something better. She gave you the truth." Dante turned to look at her. "You're very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Neither. I'm just someone who believes people deserve second chances. Even people who've done terrible things. There are no second chances in my world. Only debts to be paid." They drove through Brooklyn, across the bridge, into the wealthy neighborhoods of Staten Island. The Moretti estate emerged from the darkness, 3 stories of white stone, surrounded by iron gates and manicured grounds. Just like in the photograph. As they pulled up to the house, Mira saw the gardens. Hundreds of rose bushes, full of blooms even in November, their petals dark in the night. The roses had grown back. Just like Dante said. The mansion was cold despite its grandeur. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, expensive furniture that looked like no one had ever sat on it. It felt more like a mausoleum than a home. Dante's men brought Rosa to what must have once been a sitting room. Now it felt like an interrogation chamber. They forced her into a chair while Mira was shoved onto a sofa against the wall. "Leave us," Dante commanded. His men filed out, closing the heavy doors behind them. For a long moment, the 3 of them sat in silence. Rosa looked small in the ornate chair, her hands folded in her lap. Dante paced like a caged animal. "Say something," he finally demanded. "Defend yourself. Tell me I misheard you. Tell me it's all some elaborate lie." "I can't," Rosa said quietly. "Because it's true. All of it." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you kill him? He gave you everything. This house, money, security. He gave me a prison." Rosa's voice strengthened. "And he was pulling you into it stone by stone. You were 17, Dante. You should have been thinking about college, about girls, about your future. Instead, you were learning to collect debts and intimidate witnesses. You were becoming his weapon. I was becoming a man. You were becoming a killer." Rosa met his eyes. "The night I shot him, he just told me about his plans for you. A test, he called it. Someone had stolen from the family, a low-level guy. Nobody important. Antonio wanted you to handle it. Wanted you to make the man disappear." Dante's pacing stopped. "You were going to do it," Rosa continued. "I saw it in your eyes at dinner that night. You were excited. Proud that your father trusted you with something so important. And I realized," her voice cracked. "I realized I was losing you. That if I didn't stop it right then, you'd be lost forever. So you killed him. So I confronted him, begged him to let you go, to send you away to school, to give you a chance at a normal life. He laughed at me, said I was weak, that I didn't understand what it took to survive in this world." Rosa's hands tightened into fists. I grabbed the gun. I just wanted him to take me seriously for once, to see me as something more than a decoration. But he came at me, furious that I'd dare touch it. We struggled. And then, the sound of her sob echoed through the vast room. "Then I was a widow, and you were an orphan, and Antonio's last words were making me promise to lie, to protect you from the truth. And God help me, I did. I thought if you believed it was the Giordanos, you'd get your revenge, and then move on. Live your life. But instead I built an empire on a lie," Dante finished. His voice was hollow. "Everything I am, everything I've done, it was all for nothing." "Not for nothing," Rosa said desperately. "You can still walk away. Dismantle what your father built. Use the money to—" A sound interrupted her. Crackling. Mira smelled it before she saw it. Smoke. Creeping under the door. Dante moved to the window and looked out. His face went pale. "Fire. The east wing is burning."
"How?"
Mira stood, her heart racing. Dante was already on his phone, calling his men. No answer. He tried another number. Nothing. "Something's wrong. My security team, they're not responding." Rosa stood slowly, understanding dawning on her face. "It's not an accident." "What are you talking about?"
"Someone wants us dead, Dante."
"Both of us. Think about it. Who benefits from the Moretti family destroying itself from within?" Dante's eyes widened. "The Calabrese family. They've been trying to move into our territory for years, but they couldn't do it while we were unified." He looked at his mother with new horror. "If I kill you, or if you die here, my own people will turn on me. They'll see me as a kinslayer. The family will fracture. And the Calabreses will pick up the pieces," Rosa finished. The smoke was getting thicker. Mira could hear the fire now, crackling somewhere close. Dante ran to the door and tried it, locked from the outside. He slammed his shoulder against it, but it didn't budge. We're trapped. There has to be another way out, Mira said, looking around desperately. The windows were tall but barred, decorative iron that had become a cage. Rosa moved to the far wall, running her hands along the paneling. Antonio had secret passages, in case he needed to escape quickly. There's one here somewhere. I remember watching them install it. She pressed different sections of the wall. Nothing happened. The smoke was filling the room now, burning Myra's lungs. Hurry! Dante joined her, searching frantically. Mira dropped to her knees, looking under furniture, along baseboards. Her fingers found a small indentation in the floor beneath a bookshelf. She pressed it. A section of wall swung inward, revealing darkness beyond. Here, Mira shouted. They rushed through the opening. Behind them, flames burst through the door they'd been locked behind, consuming the sitting room in seconds. The passage was narrow and pitch black. They felt their way along, Dante in front, Rosa in the middle, Mira bringing up the rear. The passage sloped downward, leading beneath the house. Behind them they heard voices, shouting, and then gunfire. They're in a house, Dante said grimly. The Calabreses. They're making sure no one gets out alive. Where does this tunnel lead? Mira asked. If I remember right, Rosa said, breathing hard, it comes out in the gardens, near the old groundskeeper's cottage. They moved faster, the sound of destruction following them through the darkness. The tunnel ended at a wooden door, swollen with age and moisture. Dante threw his shoulder against it once, twice, 3 times before it burst open. They stumbled out into the cold night air, into the rose garden. Behind them, the mansion was an inferno. Flames licked from every window, and the sound of breaking glass punctuated the roar of fire. Dark figures moved around the perimeter, men with guns, ensuring no one escaped. This way, Rosa led them deeper into the garden, where the roses grew wild and untamed. The thorns caught at their clothes, but the dense foliage provided cover. They crouched behind a marble fountain, watching the chaos. Dante pulled out his phone, miraculously still working, and tried calling his men again. This time, someone answered.
Marco?
Where the hell are you? Dante listened, his face darkening. What do you mean half the crew is dead? Who? His jaw clenched.
Luca.
That bastard. He hung up and looked at Rosa.
Luca Marino.
One of my captains. He's been working with the Calabreses. Set the fire, killed my security team, locked us in that room. Dante's voice shook with rage. I trusted him. His father served mine. You thought loyalty was inherited, Rosa said quietly. But it never is. It's earned, and it can be bought. Gunshots erupted near the house. Mira flinched, pressing closer to the fountain. We need to move, Dante said. The groundskeeper's cottage. If we can reach it, there are vehicles there. Wait, Mira grabbed his arm. Before we run again, before anything else happens, you two need to talk. Really talk. Because if we survive tonight, if we get out of here, this might be your only chance. This isn't the time, Dante started. When is the time? Mira demanded. Your mother is dying. She has months, maybe less. And you've spent 15 years hating her ghost. Now she's here, she's real, and the truth is out. So talk to her. Because tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. Dante looked at his mother. In the firelight, Mira could see the war on his face, rage battling with grief, hatred fighting against love. Why didn't you take me with you? He asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. When you ran, why leave me behind? Rosa's eyes filled with tears. Because you would have followed me out of obligation, not choice. And you would have resented me forever. I needed you to live your own life, make your own choices, even if those choices broke my heart. So, you thought faking your death was better? I thought giving you closure was better than watching you choose that life while I was still alive. I couldn't bear to see you become your father. While looking me in the eye, Rosa reached out, her hand trembling. But I was wrong. I should have fought harder. Should have dragged you away even if you hated me for it. Because now I've done things that can't be undone, Dante finished. I've killed innocent people, destroyed families, built an empire on blood and lies. He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. The Giordanos. I hunted them for years. Every single one I found, his voice broke. And they didn't even do it. No, Rosa said. But they weren't innocent either. None of us are in this life. That doesn't make it right.
No.
It doesn't. Rosa finally touched his face, and Dante didn't pull away. But it's not too late to stop. To tear it all down. To build something better from the ashes.
How?
Dante looked at the burning mansion, his empire, his legacy, everything his father built. How do I come back from what I've become? The same way I did. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Rosa pulled the waterproof envelope from her coat. These documents. Everything about the family's operations. Bank accounts, corrupt officials, every crime committed. We give them to the authorities. We end this. Tonight. Dante stared at the envelope like it was a loaded gun. If I do that, I go to prison. Everyone in the family goes down.
Yes.
I'll lose everything. You'll lose everything. That doesn't matter, Rosa corrected.
Money. Power. Fear.
But you'll keep the one thing worth having, your humanity. I'm not sure I have any left. You do. Rosa's voice was fierce now. Because you haven't killed me yet. Despite everything I've done, everything I've confessed, you haven't pulled that trigger. That means something. That means there's still hope. More gunfire, closer now. Voices shouting in Italian. They're searching the grounds, Dante said. We need to decide. Run or make a stand. Mira looked between mother and son, two people torn apart by violence, brought back together by fire. There's a third option. We get to the cottage, use those vehicles to escape, and then we go to the FBI. We give them everything. We end this war before more people die. The Calabreses will hunt us, Dante said. Let them, Rosa replied. But they'll be hunting ghosts. We'll disappear. All of us. Start over somewhere. They'll never find us. Dante looked at the envelope in his mother's hands. Then at the burning mansion. Then at Rosa's face, weathered, worn, but still his mother. Okay, he said quietly. Let's burn it all down. They moved toward the cottage, but they weren't alone. A figure stepped from the shadows, gun raised.
Luca Marino smiled.
Going somewhere, boss. Luca wasn't alone. 3 more men emerged from the darkness, surrounding them. All had guns drawn. All wore the cold expressions of men who'd already committed to murder. Luca, Dante's voice was deadly calm. I should have seen it. You've been too ambitious lately. Too eager. You're getting soft, boss. Luca's smile didn't reach his eyes. Bringing your dead mother back from the grave? Dragging a waitress into family business? The old Dante would have put bullets in both of them and moved on. The old Dante trusted you. The old Dante was a fool. Luca gestured with his gun. The envelope.
Give it to me.
Then, maybe I'll make this quick. Rosa clutched the documents tighter. These aren't for you. They're for whoever's smart enough to take them. The Calabreses are offering me a fortune for those papers. With them, they can blackmail half the city, take over everything the Morettas built. Luca's eyes gleamed with greed. And I'll be their partner. Not some underboss taking orders. An equal. You'll be their puppet, Dante said. The Calabreses don't share power. They'll use you until you're no longer useful, then put you in the ground. We'll see. Luca took a step closer. Last chance. The envelope.
Now.
Myra's mind raced. For armed men. No weapons.
No backup.
The cottage was still 30 feet away, and even if they reached it, they'd be cut down before they could get inside. But then she remembered. The envelope wasn't the only leverage they had. You want these documents? Mira called out, surprising everyone.
Fine.
But you should know what's in them. Every crime the Moretti family ever committed. including the ones you helped with, Luca. Luca's smile faltered slightly. Bank fraud, racketeering, murder. Mira continued, her voice growing stronger. Your name is all over these papers, isn't it? Because you weren't just following orders. You were skimming, taking your cut from every operation. Shut up, Luca snapped. The Calabreses don't know that part, do they? Mira pressed. They think they're getting leverage over the Morettas. But these documents would destroy you too. The second they read them, you're a liability. One of Luca's men shifted uncomfortably. Doubt flickered across his face. She's lying, Luca said quickly. Am I? Rosa spoke up. Antonio kept detailed records of everything. Every soldier, every captain, every penny that moved through the organization. If you've been stealing, it's in here. And the Calabreses will know exactly how much you can't be trusted. Luca's composure cracked. It doesn't matter. You're all dead anyway. The envelope comes with me, and nobody lives to tell the story differently. Then you'll never know what else is in here, Dante said quietly. Bank accounts. Offshore funds. Antonio's emergency reserves. Money even I don't know about. Money you could disappear with. Start fresh somewhere the Calabreses would never find you. Greed and fear warred on Luca's face. Or, Dante continued, you can kill us all, hand those documents over, and hope the Calabreses let you live long enough to spend their money. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Then the cottage exploded. The blast knocked everyone to the ground. Myra's ears rang, her vision swimming. Through the smoke and chaos, she saw figures running toward them, more men, more guns. The Calabreses had found them. Gunfire erupted. Luca and his men returned fire, momentarily forgetting about their prisoners. Dante grabbed Rosa and pulled her behind the fountain. Mira scrambled after them, her heart hammering. We need to move, Dante shouted over the gunfire. Through the east garden, there's a service gate. I can't, Rosa was breathing hard, clutching her chest. The stress, the running, the smoke, it was too much for her failing body. Go. Both of you. I'll only slow you down. No, Dante's voice was fierce. I'm not losing you again. You're not losing me. I'm choosing to give you a chance to live. Rosa pressed the envelope into Myra's hands. Take it. Get it to the FBI. End this cycle of violence. Please. Rosa, Mira started. A bullet struck the fountain inches from Myra's head, spraying marble chips. One caught her shoulder, and she cried out. Blood bloomed through her shirt. Mira. Dante looked at the wound, his face pale. I'm okay. It's just a graze, but the world was tilting.
Shock, maybe.
Or blood loss. Or the sheer insanity of everything. Dante made a decision. He scooped Mira into his arms like she weighed nothing, then looked at his mother. Can you walk? Yes. Then stay close. We move together or not at all. They ran through the rose garden, thorns tearing at their clothes and skin. Behind them, the gunfight intensified. Luca's voice rose above the chaos, screaming orders. The Calabreses were advancing. The service gate appeared ahead. Old iron, rusted but functional. Dante kicked it open and they stumbled through, onto a narrow access road. A car was parked there. Not one of Dante's, something older, nondescript. And standing beside it, impossibly, was Eli. Need a ride? He asked, opening the back door. Dante didn't question it. He pushed Rosa into the car, then climbed in with Mira still in his arms. Eli hit the gas before the doors were fully closed. As they sped away, Mira looked back at the burning estate. She saw Luca stumble out of the garden, saw the Calabrese soldiers surround him, saw the muzzle flashes that ended his betrayal. Then they turned a corner, and the Moretti mansion disappeared from view, taking Dante's old life with it. Mira woke to white walls and the steady beep of monitors. Hospital. Her shoulder throbbed with a dull, medicated ache. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and real. You're awake. She turned her head. Eli sat in the chair beside her bed, looking exhausted but relieved. How long? Her voice came out scratchy. 3 days. The bullet did more damage than we thought.
Nicked an artery.
You almost bled out in my car. Eli leaned forward. The doctor said if we'd gotten here 10 minutes later. But we didn't. Mira tried to sit up, winced.
Rosa.
Where's Rosa? Eli's expression changed. Gone. The word hit like a physical blow.
Dead. No. Just gone.
Dante got her stabilized at a private clinic, made sure you were safe here, and then they disappeared. Both of them. Eli pulled something from his pocket, an envelope, smaller than the one with the documents. She left this for you. Mira opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Dearest Mira, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Peace. Not the peace of hiding, but the peace of being seen and accepted anyway. You risked everything for a stranger, and in doing so, you saved not just my life, but my son's soul. The documents are with the FBI. Dante and I went together, told them everything. He'll face justice for his crimes, but on his own terms, with his humanity intact. That's more than I ever hoped for. By the time you read this, we'll be far away. The authorities have agreed to certain arrangements in exchange for our testimony, a kind of witness protection, though I suspect we won't need it long. My time is short, but I'll spend it with my son, really talking to him, really knowing him for the first time in decades. Thank you for reminding an old woman that kindness still exists in this dark world. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. Thank you for giving me back my son. You changed a legacy, Mira. Never forget that. With love and gratitude, Rosa. Tears blurred Myra's vision. She wiped them away and found something else in the envelope, a photograph. The same one Dante had shown her at the diner, but this time Rosa had written on the back, "The roses always grow back, if you give them time." There's more, Eli said quietly. He pulled out a newspaper, folded to show a headline. Moretti crime family dismantled in historic FBI raid. Anonymous tips lead to dozens of arrests. Mira read the article through twice. The documents had done their work. Bank accounts frozen. Politicians arrested. The entire Moretti empire, and half the Calabrese family with it, brought down by evidence Antonio had kept for insurance. What about Dante? She asked. Cooperating witness. The article doesn't name him directly, but reading between the lines, Eli shrugged. He'll probably do some time, but not what he would have. And he'll come out clean on the other side. That's good. Mira lay back against the pillows. That's really good. The next weeks passed in a haze of recovery. Physical therapy for her shoulder. Police interviews about the night at the diner, though she kept her answers vague. The official story was that she'd been caught in crossfire during a mob dispute, not entirely untrue. Her boss Frank visited, bringing flowers and the news that the diner was being renovated. Insurance money, he explained, and an anonymous donor who wants to stay unnamed. Said something about paying a debt for soup and kindness. Mira smiled, knowing exactly who that donor was. 3 months later, she returned to work. The diner looked almost new, fresh paint, repaired booths, a working neon sign. But it still felt like Maggie's. Still felt like home. On her first night back, the late shift was quiet. Just a few regulars, the usual coffee and pie crowd. Mira found herself looking at Rose's old booth by the window, remembering the old woman who used to sit there humming Italian lullabies. The doorbell chimed at 11:30, just before closing. Mira looked up, her heart skipping. But it wasn't Rosa.
Or Dante.
Just a young man, early 20s, with nervous eyes and hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. He approached the counter and placed something there, a single red rose, fresh and perfect, tied with a white ribbon. Beside it, a note card in elegant handwriting. Mira picked it up, her hands trembling. For kindness that changed a legacy. The young man was already leaving. Wait, Mira called. Who are you? He paused at the door, offering a small smile. Just a messenger. But the people who sent me wanted you to know, the roses are blooming again. And this time, they're growing somewhere safe. Then he was gone, disappearing into the Brooklyn night. Mira held the rose, breathing in its scent. Somewhere out there, Rosa was spending her final days with her son. Somewhere, Dante was learning to be human again. Somewhere, a terrible legacy was ending and a new story was beginning. She placed the rose in a glass of water and set it on the counter where Rosa's photograph had been that first night. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle this time, washing the streets clean. Mira wiped down the tables, hummed an old Italian lullaby she'd learned from a friend, and prepared to lock up for the night. Tomorrow would bring new customers, new stories, new chances to show that small acts of kindness could ripple outward in ways no one could predict. The neon sign flickered once, then glowed steady and bright. Maggie's diner was open for business. And somewhere in the darkness, the roses kept growing.